anybody who was a celebrity that we asked if you could help us out, all of them said yes. Robin Williams, I mean, we didn't have a no. It was just the best time of my life. And if anyone says to me, look, in your career path, what was the highlight? I have to say that it was because it's just good fun, playing Santa Claus.
Hey, everybody, Chris G here, Titan's Tale. And I love being on a podcast because I get to meet people from all around the world. And I got to thinking, I have never, ever, I'm not sure if I met somebody. I don't think I've ever met anybody either. I've never spoken to anybody for sure, all the way from Australia, Brisbane, Australia. Please welcome John Dwyer.
Thanks,
John,
Chris.
welcome.
Thank you very
John,
much, Chris. Well,
thank you very much. You're a marketing expert. I know I'm going to have you introduce yourself, but I wanted to say this too. I love John's name of his foundation, the Institute of Wow. So that's an awesome name. So give us a little background, you Titan marketer person.
You Titan marketing person. That sounded almost like a swear word then, yeah. Yeah, Chris, look, my background is what we call direct response marketing. So I guess, your viewers or listeners would be very, very much aware of how important branding is for a business. And of course it is. We buy Kellogg's because it's Kellogg's, and we buy Toyota because it's Toyota. But for a lot of small to medium-sized businesses who might be doing south of $1 million turnover, it's great to say that you've got to build your brand, but at the same time, they've got to put food on the table. And so therefore we advise businesses, particularly those that fall into that category, to do what we call direct response marketing. And as that name infers, it's pretty much, hopefully getting a direct response, good or bad. When you put an ad on Facebook today, whether it's going to work tomorrow, as opposed to branding, as you know, and that is sponsoring the Olympics or putting your face on the side of a bus, which is very different.
Absolutely. So have you always been in marketing?
Yes, pretty much, mate. Yeah. So when I left college back 1,000 years ago, 1842, I think it was when I left college. So I got into marketing. I did the marketing degree at university and all of that. And in my early 20s, I was lucky enough to work for the biggest supermarket chain here in Australia, a company called Woolworths. And so I was lucky to be in the marketing department for that, and eventually ended up running the marketing department. And Woolworths are a supermarket, a little bit like Tesco out of the UK, where they weren't frightened to run what we call continuity reward programs. And what that would be is that every time you spent $10 in the supermarket, you got a stamp, like a postage stamp. You would lick the stamp, and then you would put it on a saver sheet. And anyone who's closer to my vintage, which is about 100, would remember that when you lick the stamp, you put it on a saver sheet. And when you got 10 stamps, you got cookware for ridiculously low prices. And what that taught me is just how powerful an incentive is to keep people sticky when they are buying from you. And I really passed that point. I went out, in my mid-20s and set up my own business. And from then on, it's really been providing that sort of mentality to businesses where they use an incentive to get people to not only buy their product, but to come back and back and back and back.
Before I forget, I want everybody, if they missed it, he called me mate, which I found was awesome. But the question is, John, what color was that stamp?
What color was that stamp? I wish I knew. I'm afraid my memory is not good.
The reason I say that, when I was young, we used to collect green stamps from the grocery stores.
Of course.
And you could collect those green stamps, and then it was a lot of fun because my grandma and my brother and I, we all collect our stamps. And you can go buy stuff at a green stamp store or something. I remember going shopping, and you could take those stamps and trade it in for something. And it was a cool thing. I got a sleeping bag, be exact, but I remember that.
You're spot on, Chris. Really, I mean, I know we're talking some time ago with the digital world these days. Of course, you collect whatever points you collect in a reward program. It's digital, but seriously, I mean, it all started back with those green stamps. Spot on.
Yeah, I mean, even credit cards. You use that credit card because you're going to get some points, and then you save your points up for whatever your purpose is. So that is awesome. You've actually got. I was going to wait, but I like this. I love this story. You've got a very famous. I'm not sure how recent. I don't have a date on it, but you have something with Jerry Seinfeld and a bank and a program. And I'm gonna let you explain it better. But usually, I'm asking people why. but I want to ask you how. How did you come up with the idea? How you convinced the spokesperson for it, and then you had to convince your customer to, I guess, shell out the money in ways. So how all that happen?
Yeah, what it is, what Chris is talking about is I was lucky enough to convince Jerry Seinfeld to become the advertising spokesman for a bank down under. And it was about 10 years ago, Chris. So this was about 10 years ago. Yeah.
Yep.
And what had happened is that I picked up this claim. As I said, we're a marketing agency, so it's called the Institute of Wow. So I have clients across all sorts of industries, but this particular one was a banking client. It was a building society called the Greater Building Society. And they were what we call a challenger brand. So they weren't the Wells Fargo Bank of Australia. They were, they're a couple of rungs down the ladder, smaller than that. They were still a big business. They were the 250th biggest business in Australia, but they weren't the Wells Fargo. So I said to them, look, if you're a challenger brand, as a consultant, let me say to you that you need to challenge. You need to do things differently, because otherwise, if you are not the Coca-Cola of your industry, you better not take them on price, because they're going to beat you. And if you're not the Wells Fargo of your industry and you're trying to sell home loans and beat them on price, well, you're on drugs. You're never going to beat them on price, right? And they were lovely people, but a traditional sort of conservative, almost boring bank. And I said, look, we're going to... Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You did say bankers, not wankers, didn't you?
I did say bankers. My dad was a banker, so all right.
So anyway, I said to them, look, why don't we do this? I had been doing some infomercials on TV, the George Foreman barbecue style infomercials for a travel company, and it was a discount travel company that could provide you with a $5,000 vacation for probably $2,500 or $3,000. And I said to them, look, I've met this travel company. Why don't I introduce them to you? And why don't you do this? Instead of having a 1% honeymoon rate for home loans, which is what every bank does, they give you the home loan, let's say, for 5% for the first 12 months, and then it goes up to 6% after 12. That's about the limit of their creativity. And they said, yeah, go on. And I said, well, why don't we actually give that 1% honeymoon rate to the travel company, and they will give you a fantastic vacation. And we get on TV and social media and we say, look, get a home loan from the Greater Building Society and you will get a free vacation. They said, okay, we'll give this a run for 3 months. In the first 3 months, they doubled their home loans, okay? And in the first few years, they took an extra $15 billion worth of home loans. And this idiot who you're talking to charged a consultancy fee, not a percentage of the increase in home loans.
Was that tied with Jerry Seinfeld? Was he the one?
No,
it's a separate one.
Yeah, that's the beginning of it. And then about 3 or 4 years into it, we had broken every record you could possibly think of. And I think the general manager said to me, okay, smart Alec, you've got a head bigger than the door at the moment. You can't get through. What else have you got? Because we'd already picked up all of the low-lying fruit. So just about everyone that we could probably get in and down. So I said, okay. And so you've got to understand that a building society tends to attract working class people who are tradesmen and people who are working class. And they said to me, can we take it up a level to get to doctors and dentists? And I said, no, you've mistaken me for David Copperfield. I'm afraid that if you are a building society, you've got to understand that, doctors and dentists will go to Wells Fargo. Okay, that's just the way it is. They're very, very brand conscious, and they're not going to go to a building society or a credit union. But we might be able to take it up to middle class, white collar workers. They said, well, how? I said, well, why don't we actually use a personality? And they said, yeah, right, who? And I said, I don't know, but let's pick a personality that might be cheeky, someone who would represent the cheeky brand that we created. And so that's what we did. We put out a survey to members and non-members and said, who do you think would be a good personality that would represent the bank? So it was a survey. And I'm hoping that a local Aussie TV personality would come up, of course, or, a local footballer or something like that. Guess what? Robin Williams, Jim Carrey, and Jerry Seinfeld came 1, 2, and 3. In terms of people voting who would be a good, funny person to front the bank's commercial. So I went, I've just dug myself a hole here. What the hell am I going to do? So anyway, you wouldn't believe it, but I annoyed Jerry Seinfeld's manager, a guy called George Shapiro, for 6 months. And eventually he said, okay, let me put it to Jerry. And he put it to Jerry. And yeah, Jerry said yes, which was like unbelievable. You couldn't expect. He's harder to get to than the Pope, by the way, but I got through. And when I eventually pulled it off, I said to Jerry when I went to New York to do the commercials, because it was a 3-year contract and I'd go backwards and forth to New York to do the TV ads. I said to him, Jerry, why did you do this? Because you've got more money than God. And he said, well, two reasons. Number one, I like the Aussie sense of humor. You guys are cheeky and you wanted me to take the mickey out of banks. And, I take the mickey for a living. And he said, the second reason is I thought if I didn't say yes, you'd never go away. Persistence beats intelligence.
That's right. Was it, when you're on your survey, was it multiple choice or fill in the blank? Was Jerry Seinfeld, was the survey you sent out, was it multiple choice or fill in the blank?
No, fill in the blank. So therefore they could choose anyone that they could.
Everybody, a majority, I'll be pick Jerry Seinfeld.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it was quite incredible. And look, all jokes aside, I mean, you wouldn't have picked, we couldn't have possibly picked a better personality. The brand that we had created, get a home loan, get a free vacation, was cheeky just in the sense of the offer. I mean, who anywhere in the world has ever given away a free vacation? We call it holiday down under. So if I say holiday, it's vacation. But there's no bank in the world that's ever given you a box of chocolates, let alone a vacation.
You right there.
So what happened, just Chris, so you know what happened, I flew backwards and forwards to New York quite regularly, and we actually took out an empty shop in a little town called Cedarhurst, which was just outside the Hamptons in New York. And we built, when you deal with Seinfeld, obviously everything's big. So we built a branch of the Building Society, literally inside and the outside of the Building Society in this empty shop. And Jerry was outside the shop doing stand-up comedy. That was the essence of it. And of course, he was trying to tell everybody as they're walking past, he'd do a gag and then he'd say, listen, by the way, if you'd like a free vacation, get your home loan from the, and it just went absolutely, it was like #1 news here in Australia on 60 Minutes and the Today program for morning. I mean, the free publicity that we got out of it when we launched it was just incredible, because Jerry had only ever done 2 advertising campaigns before, one for American Express and one for Microsoft. They were a little bit bigger than this Building Society.
I remember the American Express. I don't remember the Microsoft, but that's a feat in itself.
Yeah, thank you. And of course, I've milked the daylights out of it, as you would. And I remember, Chris, when I went back in the second year to do it all over again, I said to Jerry when we were having coffee one time, in between, shooting the commercials, I said, Jerry, look, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you don't have a website. And he didn't at the time, right? So this is 10 years ago. And he said, why would I need a website? And I said, well, imagine the caps and T-shirts you could sell with Seinfeld. And he goes, he had reading glasses on and he put them down on his nose like the school headmaster would if you've been naughty. And he goes, my name's John Dwyer, so I get JD. And he goes, JD, do I look like I need to sell any caps or T-shirts, right? And I said, I forgot you've got more money than God. And then he said to me, the other thing is, he said, why would I need a website? He said, I've looked at yours. I'm on there more than you, JD. And he is.
Well, I looked you up on LinkedIn and you're having a cup of coffee with Jerry in your banner. So
I told the photographer, if whenever I'm within a yard of Jerry Seinfeld, you take 100 photos because I'm going to use this forever.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Well, John, I know with every good story in marketing, there can be some bad ones, right?
Yep.
Can you tell me a story about one that you had to turn around or figure out how to solve?
Yeah. Look, on a personal note, Chris, there was a time 20-something years ago that we lost everything. I lost my house and what have you. I've got six children, and they've all left home now. They've grown up and left home. Or should I say they took all our money and then eventually left home. So speaking like a real parent, so we had the Von Trapp family, and on one occasion, I was producing in Australia pretty much most of the bubblegum trading cards. So you guys would have grown up with your basketball trading cards and you'd swap them at school, of course. Well, in Australia, same thing. And I would take out the licenses for all of the movies, so Beauty and the Beast or Little Mermaid or, Jurassic Park and all that sort of stuff. And then I would produce the bubblegum cards here in Australia, and then we'd put them out through the drugstores and Kmart and so forth, right? And as it turned out, I used to have to go backwards and forwards to Los Angeles quite a bit to deal with Disney's office. And on one occasion when I was overseas, the guy that worked for me and ran my business printed badly. He made a huge mistake. on printing the wrong numbers on, I think it might have been the Aladdin series of cards. And as it turned out, when the kids went into the drugstore and bought their $1.50 packet of cards, instead of getting random numbers like 14 and 112 and what have you, they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So every time they bought a packet of cards, they got the same cards. So every talkback radio show was saying that, this company is ripping off children and it's a scam and blah, blah, blah. So as it turned out, when I got back, he's at the airport, this particular guy that made the mistake with tears in his eyes and said, look, I'm sorry, I've made a devastating mistake whilst you've been away. And I said, what is it? And he tells me, and I knew what was going to happen. As it turned out, we had to grab all the cards from all around Australia, and we didn't burn them. We gave them to charities. But by the same token, I lost 2.2 million in 1 week. And we're talking, 20 something years ago. So that's real money.
Yeah, real.
Yeah. And I'll never forget it, Chris. I felt so bad because my wife, father was a lovely guy, but unfortunately he suffered from gambling. And so therefore my wife had been through, growing up, losing houses because the father would put the house on the horses, and she was to marry an entrepreneur like me. And as you know, entrepreneurs don't put money necessarily on the horses, but what they do is, back the next project. And so therefore I just felt bad, because you wouldn't believe the day that we were leaving our home because we lost it was Mother's Day. And I remember driving down the driveway and thinking to myself, I look across and I saw her wiping a tear from her eye, and I just felt so bad. So anyway, the only way that we could get out of this hole was that I was pitching for the license for the rugby league trading cards. Now, our gridiron game here in Australia is called rugby, all right? Mm-hmm. And it's on, 4 or 5 nights a week, so therefore it is the big national sport. And I knew that if I got the trading card license for that, we might make a comeback. I might get the $2 million back again. And I begged the bank. I said to the bank, please, 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 can you just keep me open until the 30th of the month? Because I'm hoping that out of the 5 companies that are pitching for the license, I might be able to get it. The other 4 companies were bubblegum companies, and I was the only marketing company. And then as it turned out, the bank did the right thing. We had to reduce our staff from 20 down to 8 or 9, and they said, we'll keep you open for another few weeks. Well, during that few weeks, Chris, can you imagine persistent speech intelligence? I was ringing the rugby league decision maker every day. Have you made a decision? Have you made a decision? He didn't know my lifeline was on it, but anyways, it turned out he said, not yet. Wait for this, Chris. I called into a church one morning. I just said a prayer to the guy upstairs, and I just said, look, is there any chance you could please just let me win this license so I can, put a roof over my family's head again? And I think God has sarcasm as one of his traits, because at 10 to 5 on the day that the bank was coming to put a lock on the door, 10 minutes before they were going to come, I get a phone call from the rugby league guy, and he says, we've made the decision. Of course, I'm shaking. And I said, yes. He said, you've got the license. And I just wiped the sweat from my brow. And I said to him, oh, thank you. He said, no, don't thank me yet. He said, on one condition. And I said, anything, what's that? And he said, you never ring me again for the rest of your life. You're the most annoying person I have ever. When we got the license, Chris, because we're a marketing company, I went to the big newspapers and the Sunday newspaper, which is Murdoch owned, Rupert Murdoch. I would give them millions of these cards to give away with the Sunday paper, and because I wanted sampling, of course. And what they would do, if it wasn't World War III, they would have me all over the front, not me personally, but my football cards all over the front page of the newspaper saying, get your Sunday Telegraph today because you get 2 free football cards. And they would spend about $300,000 or $400,000 on TV on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, telling you to buy the Sunday paper because you're going to get your free footy cards. A bubblegum company doesn't do that. So we were out there on all the football shows. I gave a few dollars to the hosts of all the football, commentary shows. We took the rugby league license the year before. They did 2 million in sales. We did 12 million in sales in the first year, and we paid that money back in 7 months.
That is a tale to tell. That's awesome. And things do happen, but it all turns around, and you being persistent got you through. And I always like to talk about the man upstairs give you a little help too, and you asked him. So that's really good.
And if I could just say this to you, Chris, because the guy upstairs was very kind to me, I had promised him that if I could pull this off, that I would pay back. I'd provide hopefully some inspiration to people who were doing it tough. And as we well know, particularly in the climate that we're in at the moment, many people are doing it tough. And so what I did at the end of this, we sold the company, and we got out because I just thought, well, that would be a nice end. Not within 12 months thereafter, I sold the company, and I thought, well, I'll pay back. So I put together a TV show and pitched it to a network here in Australia, and it was called Dreams Can Come True. And it was all about delivering dreams to needy people. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful TV show that broke ratings records. If someone needed a home, we surprised them with a house. And if they needed a motor car, we gave them a motor car. And if they hadn't seen their sister for 24 years from Ireland, then we brought her out. It was one of those wonderful Disney-style TV programs whereby nothing was impossible. We had a little boy who was in a wheelchair, and he wasn't, you can imagine he suffered from spina bifida, and his parish priest had contacted us, and because the TV network bought the show, and the priest said to us, this little boy tried to commit suicide not long before because he was in a wheelchair and he didn't feel good about life. And as it turned out, because he didn't, he wasn't successful, thankfully, and one of his friends convinced him to take up wheelchair basketball, and he became a member of the under-16 wheelchair basketball team within 6 months, and he would score pretty much 90% of their points. And we surprised him because his hero of all heroes was Michael Jordan, and we surprised him after a big game in a big stadium with the fact that he was flying to not only go to a Michael Jordan game, this was the last season that Michael Jordan played, but Michael Jordan would take him to lunch in the Michael Jordan restaurant in Chicago the day after the game.
That is a better story than the one you told before. I don't think Michael Jordan's restaurant's open still. I don't think. I have ate at Michael Jordan's.
Have you? Yeah.
I want to tell a story about Michael Jordan. So back in 2001, we had 9/11 here in the States.
Yep.
And actually, I was flying that day, and that's a whole other story. But basically, a couple of weeks later, when it kind of opened up, I had a trade show in New York, and it was during the World Series. And in 2001, they had the Subway Series where both New York Mets and the New York, the Yankees, they played each other. Okay.
Yep.
So to bring up morale, and everybody was still scared and flighty, George Bush was going to throw out the baseball at the opening homecoming World Series, and it had to be homecoming here in my high school. But anyway, so at the World Series, so that's also the day that Michael Jordan come out of retirement and went back playing basketball. So we went to and my buddy, he was nervous about going to the ball game. He wanted to go see Michael Jordan. Okay, so we went down. We asked the concierge, "Hey, can we get tickets to go see Michael Jordan? I'll check on it." And this is kind of sad in a way, but that's how much Michael Jordan is loved. You could not get a ticket to Michael Jordan's ball game, but she could got us into the World Series opening game, and all that good stuff in New York, and see President Bush. And I couldn't talk my buddy into going because he was scared, but I don't mean that mean but he was nervous. He didn't want to go. I said, all right, fine. I said, but man, this would be a hell of a story. We got to go see, but he wouldn't go. But I find it always funny that Michael Jordan outrated the World Series, and you cannot go see on his opening game, and that's just something else. So
doesn't it show you the absolute impact that a sports star in particular? I know, we can talk about Taylor Swift and all the, the Beatles,
yeah. Sure.
But the sports stars, I think, command a love, and I guess that they are so much more inspiring than a celebrity. And I have to say to you that when we took the little boy, mate, this is a chance in a gazillion, because you wouldn't believe it. You're going to laugh at this, Chris. When I went in to pitch the show to Channel 10, which is like our NBC, right? The programmer guy says to me, look, I love the concept, and we'd made a little pilot, and so therefore he was crying because it's pretty emotional. And he said to me, look, how much do you want for the show? Now, I'd produced a gazillion TV commercials, but never a TV show, so I had no clue. And the girl that was with me, who ran Side Saddle with me, was, a wonderful girl that had been working with, I say girl, but woman, had been working with me for a while. And she knows that sometimes I suffer from wing it disease. In other words, you just wing it. And the programmer said, well, listen, this is great. I'm crying after you've just shown me that pilot, which is a wonderful dream. But he said, really, you have to have celebrities in this sort of show. I know that you're not building it around celebrities, but we're a TV network. So you have to have some of the dreams that, having celebrities. And I said, yeah, we can do that. And he said, well, okay, so how much are you going to charge for the show? And I just made a number up. I said, $140,000 for an hour show. And he nearly fell off his chair. He said, look, we buy 90210 for 25,000, and we buy The Simpsons for 30,000 a show. For 140,000, you want to have the biggest celebrities. And this idiot who you're talking to, Chris, just pulled this out of my, where I said, oh, we got Michael Jordan. And he said to me, you've got what? And because he flipped his lid and he rang around the building to the sports announcer, get in here, I've got a guy that can get Michael Jordan. The sports announcer swings through the door like Kramer from the Seinfeld show. And he goes, where's the guy that can get Michael Jordan? And I'm putting my hand up, going, oh, that would be me. And Linda, the woman who works with me, is going, what the hell are you talking about? So they say, right, well, you've got X number of shows. You're going to be on Sunday night up against 60 Minutes. Talk about pressure. So anyway, we get to the elevator and we're waving to these guys. And when the elevator door closes, I'm doing high fives with Linda. And she said, this is unbelievable. Our first TV show. This is great. I said, yeah, Linda, there's one thing I want you to do for me. She said, what's that? I said, get bloody Michael Jordan. Right? So we put out an all points bulletin to all the parish priests and ministers around Sydney and so forth. And as it turned out, it wasn't very hard to find, any. We just said to them, do you have any body that would like to meet Michael Jordan? And of course, we got thousands of people with their hand up. And that's where one local parish priest said to us, I've got this little boy and suffers from spina bifida and he's in a wheelchair, and wonderful story. And you're not going to believe this. It was the day of the fax machines. And so therefore I put together a fax and sent it to Michael Jordan's office. And I had a yes the next morning. I woke up and went to my office, and there's a fax from his office which said, yeah, Michael Jordan has read your note. And if you bring the little boy over on a certain date, then he will not only see the game the night before with VIP tickets, but Michael Jordan will have lunch with him in the Michael Jordan restaurant. And wait for it, the little boy's 15th birthday was that day, and Michael Jordan came out of the kitchen with a birthday cake singing happy birthday, right? That's how. Now, I said to Michael Jordan on that day when we were there, mate, can I just ask you, how did this get through? He said, well, the guy upstairs must have been looking down upon you. But he said, because the thing is, I only visit my office once every 3 weeks. And he said, I was walking past the fax machine and your bit of paper was coming out. Zip, 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 zip. It was coming out. I picked it up and read it and had to wipe a tear from my eye. And I said to my secretary, make this one happen. And he said, I, at that stage, was getting 1 million requests a week. So it's 1 in a million.
The Institute of Wow. That is, actually I got tears in my eyes because I'm laughing, but that is yes, the good Lord is shining on you guys and making that happen. That's an awesome.
Oh, there's no question. There's no question that there was divine intervention, and I'm not trying to be corny or religious about this.
No, sir. I mean, just, yeah. It's enough said.
Yeah, and Chris, I've got to say to you, is that right throughout making the TV show, we had yeses from everybody you could think of. Steven Spielberg, Sylvester Stallone, all the people that were anybody who was a celebrity that we asked if you could help us out, all of them said yes. Robin Williams, I mean, we didn't ever know. It was just the best time of my life. And if anyone says to me, look, in your career path, what was the highlight? I have to say that it was because it's just good fun, playing Santa Claus. We had all of the airlines help us out, Qantas and people like that would, fly people around the world for us. And I have to say just one to you, which was a funny one. A little boy in Australia was 16 years of age, and he was suffering from a skin-eating disease, which was pretty nasty. It was not life-threatening, but pretty nasty. And his dream was to be like Steven Spielberg, a filmmaker. So he was a mad filmmaker at 16 years of age. And as it turned out, he asked, is there any chance that, his parents asked, is there any chance we could get an autograph? Well, of course, that's too easy. We called ourselves the Dream Team. And if it was an autograph, we were like, forget that. Let's do something more difficult. So I contacted Spielberg's office and said, could we bring the little boy over and he could meet Steven Spielberg? And they came back and said, look, he's in the Amazon jungle at the moment doing Jurassic 3 or whatever it was. Right. But if you get the little boy into the Amazon, then yeah, not a problem. So So, we'd sit around the table and we go, oh, well, that's going to take 24 hours extras, but yeah, well, let's do it. So we organised to take the little boy into the Amazon jungle. And just as we're about to surprise the little boy, the host of the TV program was walking into his classroom to surprise him. We get a call from Spielberg's office and says, look, we're really, really sorry, but Mr. Spielberg said that he can't do it because mosquitoes in the Amazon jungle are the size of a bird. And with the little boy's skin condition, we can't get insurance. And I said,
That's kind of a good idea. Yeah.
yeah. And so he said, but listen, so that you can still fulfill the dream, Mr. Spielberg said that, the little boy can come over and meet one of his friends. And I always, if I'm telling this story on stage at a seminar and my wife is down the back of the room, my joke is to everyone, that'd be like someone wanting to meet me and they get to meet my wife. I mean, seriously, you got so and Chris, she rolls her eyes, of course. And as it turns out, I'm disappointed because I'm going, oh God, we're going to be one of Spielberg's friends. Guess who his friend was? George Lucas from Skywalker Ranch. That's a pretty good option B.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so the guy upstairs, I think, suffers. I won't say suffer. Call it a gift, but the guy upstairs, I think, has as much sarcasm as you and me.
We are in his image, so I got a note here to myself. I'm going to get back on track. What other than vacations? What kind of other incentives have you done in the past that got attracted?
Yeah, Chris, I'm putting the marketing hat back on, and we call it incentive-based marketing. So direct response marketing really has 5 components to it. And number 1, you've got to identify your prospect's problem. Number 2, you've got to aggravate that problem. And number 3, you've got to provide the solution. And then number 4 is normally testimonials. You've got to provide proof. And then number 5 is call to action, and in other words, an offer. So say it was a weight loss company, you would say, look, are you overweight, not feeling good about yourself? That's a problem. Number 2, you would aggravate the problem and say, look, summer's just around the corner. Do you want to look good in your swimsuit? And then number 3, you would provide the solution. So you say, look, my weight loss program's going to help you, right? And then number 4, you'd have multiple people on video saying, look, I got the weight loss program and now my life has changed. And then number 5, call to action. And that is, look, buy the weight loss program and by Friday and you'll get this, this, and this. So it's really problem solution marketing, which hardly anyone does, by the way. Most people just market on price. They just drop their pants and that's what they do. And a big part of direct response marketing, in fact, in my view, it's probably the most important thing, is an incentive, giving someone an incentive like the green stamp that we used to talk about. And I've found that the best incentives are fuel discounts. So when I talked about Woolworths, the big supermarket chain, they would say spend $30 and you get 4 cents per litre. We don't call it gallon, and it would be gallons in America, but
right.
And so that gets you to go back to the supermarket because you are getting, fuel discounts, gas discounts. The other one that works, of course, is dining vouchers, and dining vouchers work because they are appealing to all ages. Okay, another one that works is movie vouchers. We had a turf farm, would you believe? This one that you'd be interested in. It's a turf farm. We had about 4 miles worth of turf, as in grass, for your front yard and your backyard. And he said to me, he'd saw one of my song and dance shows and seminars, so he joined our program. And he said, JD, listen, I've got 4 miles worth of grass. I've got to get rid of it so I can replant. And I said, okay. So I visited his turf farm, and the grass went on for as far as the eye could see. It just went on for miles. And he said, you think you're pretty good, don't you, JD? So see if you can move 4 miles worth of grass. I said, oh, thank you. And I said to him, who's your target audience? He said, well, not mum and dads, because they would just buy a backyard or front yards worth of grass. It's landscapers, because they will buy 3 or 4 homes at a time. I said, okay, well, what do you think landscapers like as if we gave them a gift? He said, I don't know, you tell me. I said, beer. I mean, 99.9% are male. So therefore, why don't we give a carton of beer, but not just a normal carton, but a premium beer, the upmarket beer, because that is something they normally wouldn't buy. And he said, yeah, okay, we'll give it a shot. So we bought a mail list of 500 landscapers around Brisbane, because that's where he was. And we sent out only 250 of them. We only got to send out 250 letters and brochures. And we emailed them as well. But, landscapers tend to be a little bit sort of tech phobia. So therefore we figured, well, we'll mail them as well as email them. And he rings me up 5 days after we've started the promotion, and he said, JD, we have a problem. And that's the message as a consultant you do not want to hear. You go,
Yeah.
oh, God. You know. And I said, what's the problem? He said, we don't have any grass left. I said, what? He said, we've just gone through 4 miles worth of grass. I said, what? And he said, look, I'm telling you how crazy this Happy Meal toy, well, I call it a Happy Meal toy. He said, this Happy Meal toy of yours, which is the free beer, he said, the biggest nuisance landscaper that I've had is this guy called Jim. And Jim would always ring up before the promotion and say, oh, how much are you charging for, XYZ grass? And I'd say $6 a square meter. And he'd say, well, I can get it across the road down at the other turf farm for $5.50. So it was a whole price discounting thing. And he said, that guy rang up and said, I want 18 homes worth of grass. And I don't care when the grass gets here. I need the beer by Friday. I've got a party. So, yeah, that was an interesting Happy Meal toy. But I've got to say to you, Chris, the thing is that out of all of the giveaways that I've created for lots of businesses over time, and I've been involved in doing it for 7-Eleven and McDonald's, so there's been big businesses as well. I've tried everything from skateboards to microwave ovens to dining vouchers to petrol vouchers to movie vouchers, you name it, I've done it. And by a million miles, a free vacation is the most successful thing I've ever seen. And as a result of the Greater Building Society thing working and having Seinfeld, I got contacted just before COVID by a travel company. And they said, look, we've got access to unsold rooms around the world. And these hotels outside of school vacation period are happy to give up their rooms for free in the hope that whoever stays there will spend money on food and beverage. And I said every travel scam there is. So, of course, it sounded too good to be true. Hotels giving up free rooms. So I turned this thing upside down. And, it was Ridgy Didge, we call it. It was real. And so, therefore, they said to me, listen, do you want to join forces and offer businesses, particularly small ones, the opportunity to have a Happy Meal toy where people buy their refrigerator or their lounge suite or the landscaping services and you give them a free vacation. And that vacation costs them less than $50. So they give someone a 3 to 7 night vacation in, Los Angeles, Cancun, Orlando, Vegas, and it's worth, $1,000 or more. But the businesses get them for $50, and we've been marketing that for a few years, and it just goes nuts. If they actually come out and say, buy my product, and you get a free vacation 3 to 7 nights, and it's only costing them $50, the thing goes nuts.
Wow.
Oh, you can't use that word, Chris. You can't use that word "wow." That's copyrighted. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, we won't do that then. I have a couple of them questions, but I keep coming up with them. What was your Happy Meal gift for the KFC? I was just curious.
A calendar. It was an annual calendar, and I know these days where that's all online, but this was a few years back. And what we did is that we did a deal with Warner Brothers. I had the license at the time to do all of the Batman movie stuff. And so therefore we had KFC as a client. And KFC said, look, can you actually get a license that's not only Batman, but also all the Looney Tune characters as well? And we created a calendar. So we said to everyone, look, come and get the bucket of chicken. And this was a pre-Christmas, so therefore it was running through December through the end of January. Come and get a bucket of chicken, and you get one of these beautiful a quarter size calendar where you flip over January, February, March. Yeah.
Be different character. Oh, that's cool. All right. So you told me some ways that some of the stuff just comes out of you know what, but which is creative, no doubt. But do you brainstorm a lot of this stuff with a team, or you kind of do you have a team and you kind of sit down and say, here's what we got and what's outrageous and what's going to work?
Yes and no, Chris. I mean, look, that most people are practical, and a lot of people say why rather than why not. Okay, I suspect you would fall into the why not category because you're an entrepreneur, and so I find that I'm not that good in committees. And my wife,
really?
Yeah, my wife calls me a lot of names, but one of them is dictator. And look, if it's a group of creative people, then yes, I do sit down, and we've got a team around us, and I'm these days the old fart with the wisdom, and of course I surround myself with young guys that are basically experts at digital marketing. I always argue that it doesn't matter what the communications tool is. The stuff that I've, sort of been involved in over the years is most of it, not all of it, but most of it's timeless, because where you may have in the old days used it as a letterbox brochure, or it might have been a newspaper ad, or it might have been a radio ad. These days it's Facebook, or it's Instagram, or TikTok, or whatever it might be. The idea is still the main thing. It doesn't matter what the communication tool is. It comes back to the idea. And don't get me wrong, I'm not silly enough not to take other people's opinions, but I have to say that, when you are sitting even with your own crew in our business, we're not a massive business, but we've got half a dozen people. And when I do sit down and sometimes throw out a crazy idea, you will get the why would you do that? And I prefer to deal with people who go, why not? For example, with the TV show all those years ago, there was only half a dozen, but every time, something impossible would come up. We had to drop a food parcel into the middle of Australia, which is barren, okay? And there was a community there that had a flood and they didn't have food. So one of the dreams was to get food into these people, because they've tried everything they possibly could and they couldn't get it. And so one of the guys in the half a dozen of us that were producing this program said, the only way we can get it is through a Hercules jet from the Air Force. We just have to get a Hercules jet. And like most other people would go, you're an idiot. And so I said, okay, well, can you do that? He goes, give me 24 hours. Sure enough, we got what he said. That's the sort of people you want to hang around with. And
Absolutely.
I call them the never give up people. They just don't give up. And the only reason, seriously, that you pull off some of these things, I got Princess Di involved in that show. Would you believe it was just before she passed away? And
Right.
The reason that we got her to do something for us when she was down under, she went to lunch with a little girl who'd lost her leg through cancer. So it was a wonderful story, and we got Princess Di to have lunch with her. And the girl from Buckingham Palace said to me, Mr. Dwyer, you are very persistent. I rang them. And this is her secretary, Princess Di's secretary. She said, Mr. Dwyer, you are very persistent. And you wouldn't believe this. I said, yeah, we have a mantra. And she said, what's that? And wait for it, Chris. I said, never say die. Oh my God.
A little 007 there. I see a theme here. What do you say? Persistence beats brain power.
Persistent.
Yeah.
Look, I didn't come up with it. It was one of those little motivational quotes at the bottom of the calendar when you flip over each day's, thing, and it just said persistence beats intelligence. And I went, oh, thank God, because I'm not intelligent.
It might have been on that KFC when it had Batman telling you. We're about right out of time here. I got a few more questions though. So you said you had 6 kids, right?
Yep.
Any of them following the old man's steps or work with you today or anything like
that? Look, no, they're not. They're video. Typically, of course, millennials, they're videographers like every other millennial. So there's a couple of videographers in there, and one's a school teacher and one's an accountant, but a creative accountant. So they're across, their own industries. But I have to say here, Chris, what happens is that. By the way, I mean, I don't think they knew what I did up until this vacation promotion that we had, because every one of them has milked their daylights out of these free vacations. So I'm the coolest dad on earth at the moment. I don't know. I think they just thought that they went to private schools for free. I don't think they even knew what I did for a living. But all jokes aside, I have to say to you that once they get a mortgage, okay, so you're just a normal idiot father who doesn't understand millennials up until when they get a mortgage. But when they get married and get a mortgage, it's, hey, Dad, any chance you could help me out with some of that wow factor stuff with a side hustle? I'm thinking of selling this on Amazon, Dad. Can you put some of that wow factor pixie
How does
dust?
that work? Yeah. I have one last question. So the TV show. Did it ever broadcast in the U.S. that you know of?
No, it didn't. But if anyone wants to grab a box of tissues and have a look at the show, we created little 10-minute segments, so you don't have to watch the whole hour episode each time. But we've created little 10-minute segments, and if you go to theinstituteofwow.com, up on the menu bar, you will see Wow TV show, and you can, as I said, I have to warn you, you need a box of tissues next to you.
Well, that was going to be my next question. So thank you.
Yeah.
John, if anybody would like to reach out to you or contact you, how would they do that?
No, Chris, look, I've got too much money. I don't need anybody to contact me. All right.
Well, I appreciate you being on here. Well, Jerry Seinfeld. No.
I wish I could say, look, I've got the private island, I've got the airline. I mean, I don't need anybody to contact me, but no, that's not the truth. When you've got 6 kids, I'm afraid your superannuation package is not what it would have been.
And
um,
do you have any grandchildren yet?
yeah, we have. And it's just wonderful. It's a real gift. We've got about 6 grandchildren that age from just about 0 through to 7 and
Yeah.
8, and it's just great fun, mate. It's just I said to Gail, my wife, isn't it just deja vu? It's happening all over again, and we love every second of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, Chris, to answer your question, though, yeah, look, if anyone wants to contact me, I'm not that important. So therefore, you can contact me on my personal email. It's john@theinstituteofwow.com. And my website is theinstituteofwow.com. And as I said to you, though, Chris, at the outset, I have what I think is a pretty good gift. So if you like, I can just explain to
Yes, please.
everyone.
I think that'd be awesome.
This is Chris, because I live to give. I've got a book, and it's a rather big book. So if you're watching this on video, you'll see that in my hand at the moment is what we call the Wow Manifesto. And what happened when you hit the seminar circuit, and I didn't realize this, I hit the seminar circuit about 10 or 11 years ago, and I said to my wife, look, we're not getting any younger. Why don't we do this Anthony Robbins seminar stuff? So we did it. And I was not real flash at it to start with, but eventually we got involved in, having a promoter, promote my stuff. So therefore, business owners normally come to it. These days, it's webinars, of course. Anyway, so when you hit the seminar circuit, the promoter said to me, you've got to write a book. And I went, what? He said, you've got to write a book. I went, here we go. So therefore, this is the book. It's a gigantic one. It's the size of a tabloid newspaper. And this particular one is leather bound, and it's gold tipped on the edges, and it's $420 to print the damn book. But I've got the digital version of that. If you want that for free, just go to wowmanifesto.com /gift, as in Christmas gift, right? And the thing is that in here is 300 pages of all of the winning direct response concepts that I've given businesses over the years. Most of these concepts that in here are for smaller businesses doing less than $1 million. I've got KFC and McDonald's and 7-Eleven and stuff in there as well. But it's a swipe file. I'm showing off, but it's a swipe file of direct response concepts from heaven, because everything in here has worked. I didn't put the ones in there that didn't work. So it's a swipe file. If you want that, it's basically wowmanifesto.com /gift.
And you will find that link at the bottom of the show notes as well. And as always, if you go to titanstale.com, all those great links and emails and so forth will be in the guest directory under John Dwyer, or JD, as some people call him. John, thank you very much. I tell you what, I this was a good one. They're all good, but I laughed quite a bit today. So thank you very much for your time. And you are great, surely a great Titan.
My
Bye-bye.
pleasure. Thanks, Chris.